It's once you get it down, it's very, very simple, and it can be. And I typically try to keep this within 5 to 10 minutes, you know, because oftentimes that's all we have is like 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so the first thing I try to articulate is say, I can appreciate you have a program or you've met with somebody from American Express before. However, I'd like to demonstrate how we're different from a typical bank, you know, whether that be Bank of America, Chase, or what have you. We're very different. So I'll always start off with talking about that AMEX closed loop network. So I'll ask them, I'll say, so Mr. CFO, have you ever heard of the American Express closed loop network? No, I haven't. Well, what do you mean? Well, let me show you. So American Express is the only entity that is a merchant acquirer. So I'll write out acquirer. That is a network operator. So we own and operate the American Express network. And we are a payment issuer. So we issue payment solutions like corporate cards and electronic payments and virtual cards, things of that nature. So we're the only ones that do all three. So what does that mean to you? Because there's the so what. What does that mean, so what? Well, what it means to you, Mr. CFO, is that you're a merchant, so let's just call them General Electric, for example. So we have an American Express rep that signed up General Electric to accept the American Express programs. So there's somebody just like me at American Express that manages that relationship every single day, month, 365 days a year. So the fact that we signed up your merchant, we know exactly what the financial impact is for them to accept these types of programs. So when you look at a typical bank, banks only focus on 100% of 50% of the transaction. Right here, banks only focus on that one piece there. Banks focus on issuing a credit card, issuing e-payables, and that's it. They don't operate their own network. They usually outsource to Visa or MasterCard. Visa or MasterCard, it's a third-party publicly traded organization, right? And then if you sign up with a bank, who signed up GE to accept Visa or MasterCard? We don't know. It could have been JP Morgan Chase, could have been Wells Fargo, it could have been an individual sales organization. There's 1,000 of them out there. So you'll find in our model, because we have a one-on-one relationship, and the reason why we've been able to build large and successful programs is because it has to be a win for all three parties for these solutions to make sense. And what I see for my clients is typically our programs, because of this model, are anywhere from 50 to 200% larger than an average bank program. So let's see what that looks like with our solutions here. And this is when I really get into it, really get into the details. So in the marketplace, electronic payments are they're known as e-payables. Electronic payments, we call them virtual payments in some places, or there's ghost cards. So what I'm about to show you is a solution that we offer, but I'll tell you why we typically don't unless it's a supplemental program, all right? So in a typical e-payables or ghost card model, and if they have a program like this, I'll just say, in your program, what you're doing today with Wells Fargo or Bank of America, here's what it looks like. So you have your supplier, we'll just use GE. GE, when they process credit card payments, they usually go through a third-party processor. The processor is usually backstopped by a bank. Well, it could be any bank. Then they have to process transactions through a Visa or a MasterCard network. Then you have the bank you're comparing me to, let's call them B of A. And then finally, we have your company, what's called ABC Company. So when you look at the whole procure-to-pay process, in today's environment, you're cutting checks, you're sending ACHs, or you're using your e-payables program. So in today's environment with e-payables, once you're ready to cut your check and invoices are approved, you're going to send Bank of America a payment instruction file. It's analogous to a check run file. And then B of A is going to get this file, and they're going to process it, and they're going to send an email to your supplier. And on that email, there's going to be a credit card number. So as soon as this email hits your supplier, here's the key word here. There is an action. There's an action required by the vendor. Somebody literally in accounts receivable has to punch in that credit card number for the card to process. So let's just pause there. Let's think about that. If that happens, there's a couple of different things we have to deal with, right? Number one, so charges are not processed in a timely fashion. Could be the end of the month. You need to close out. You need these charges to get through. You don't want to get a late penalty, things of that nature, right? Well, maybe they're on PTO, they're on vacation, and they're not there. The second thing that happens, and we see it pretty often, is the accounts receivable reps, oftentimes they key in the wrong amounts. It happens a lot more than people think. By the way, Mr. and Mrs. Klein, are you dealing with this today? You are, okay. So, all right. So, and every single time, the AP reps, they're always like, they start laughing. It's like, yeah. So, so they often have reconciliation issues. You know, maybe you have an invoice that's for, you know, $100.25, but they charged $50.65. And so now AP's thinking, why did they only charge $50.65? I don't know what's going on. Times that by 1,000 invoices, now you have a full-time person managing these reconciliation issues. It's not a good process to have. The third thing would be these credit card numbers expire. So oftentimes people set settings or time limits on these virtual cards or these ghost cards, and maybe it's a 2-week period. And if accounts receivable does not charge the credit card or the ghost card, they expire. So when they expire, that means AP back in your organization has to go back, log into the portal, they have to reapprove everything, they have to send another file or send another notification. Then you might have to wait another week or two for these guys to process it, and it can be an ongoing, thing. So a couple different things here that are not necessarily the most efficient. The fourth thing, and I'll highlight this in green, is higher fees. So typically your vendor will have to pay higher fees for these types of programs because of all the third parties involved. So to give you an example of that, let's say in the perfect world, the email comes through, AR processes the credit card number, it goes through this third-party processor, it goes to the bank, it has to go to Visa or MasterCard to validate, make sure it's a legitimate charge. Then Visa and MasterCard kicks it back, and then finally you get your money. So at the end of the month, GE, the processor, the bank, Visa, MasterCard, and B of A, they have to issue you a statement. And so you may think when you're closing out your books that you have 100% of your invoices that are closed out, but because of the reconciliation, they didn't charge in a timely fashion, maybe you had some cards that expired, well now you only captured 75%. So now you have 25% that are sitting in like an unbilled status. More work, more reconciliation, a bit of a headache, okay? So,
do they truly agree to that? I mean, do they say, yeah, we do see that, you're right, we do see that kind of reconciliation with our Bank of America program or whatever?
Absolutely. I think I've had one person that told me, oh no, we don't see that at all. But they're never usually the ones in the trenches. If I ask the gal in AP that runs and manages the program, 100%, oh yeah, we know exactly what you're talking about.
Think about yesterday, George was talking about using a card in our reconciliation process and what's missing, right? That's basically what this is, right?
So, yeah, absolutely. And so, in a sense, I'm kind of selling against VPay, but here's how I come back to VPay. So look, you know, we offer a solution like this if you really want it. Matter of fact, there are some suppliers that require a 16-digit credit card number. So this is the only way they can close out their invoices. So there might be a handful of suppliers that we can use V-payment for to add to your incremental rebate. So I'm already like tossing it up there, like, oh, we'll go ahead and add this, you know, eventually to get you a bigger rebate. But we have this, okay? This is what you're doing today. Now, so let me share what's popular right now with American Express and, you know, where we see the market going. So this is kind of the previous example was sort of like an old school way of payments. You know, just like technology, you can't use the same computer for the next 10 years, and you have to evolve. We've evolved as an organization. We've invested millions of dollars to ensure that we're providing a best-in-class payment solution. So what's popular right now is we have a program called Buyer-Initiated Payments. Otherwise known as VIP. So here's how it works. So you have your supplier, let's call them GE. You have, I'll just use this. You have the American Express network. And here's your company, ABC Company. So this is a very simple concept, but very powerful in execution of how this works for our clients. So again, once invoices are approved and you're ready to generate payment, you're not going to send us, or you're going to send us a payment instruction file similar to what you send to the bank. And I'll usually write PIF, payment instruction file. Then what we're going to do is we're going to process this within 24 to 48 hours on average. And what we're going to do is we're going to send an ACH direct deposit to your vendor directly into their bank account. And we're also going to send them, and I ran out of room here, but I write remittance. We're also going to send them the full remittance information so they know exactly what invoices are there to be closed out and what this ACH is for. So a couple things here. Number one, there is no action required on GE side. They are just getting their money. That's it. There's no POS tool. They have to enter in a credit card number. There's no opportunity for keying in the wrong amounts. There's no opportunity for fraud. There's, you don't have to worry about credit card numbers expiring or any of that type of stuff. You know, so much more efficient. So once the money is deposited into your vendor's bank account, we're going to send a confirmation file right back to you. And it's going to show exactly what was processed through the American Express network. Also, a key line that I typically like to say, hey, look, you know, the other thing is too, because we're sending this electronic payment, which is very similar to an ACH, it's not reliant on credit card acceptance. So we have vendors that will accept buyer-initiated payments that won't accept credit cards. And we're seeing that trend because one of the reasons why suppliers like this versus a credit card payment is the fees are cut in half. You know, so for everyone's knowledge, I never really talk about the fees, but just so you know, sometimes, I mean, I've seen as low as a 1% fee, BIP, to as high as like 2.25%, whereas like the corporate card or standard e-payables fees are well over 300 basis points. So I always say, you know, oftentimes they want a payment like this because it increases efficiencies on their side. They're going to get electronic payment. And the other thing is they're paying a much lower fee. And this is a big reason why we can build you a very, very large program. And I always smile after I say it. So I always do the whole assumptive close. I say, so, you know, do you have any questions here? No. Do you have any reservations about this? I mean, is this something you think that could be impactful to your organization? Okay, great. Well, the next step is to run an analysis so we can understand what the total opportunity is. And so it's just, you know, basically an AP file we would need, and then I just ask for that, and then book the follow-up appointment. But that's basically the gist. And I usually get through that in 5 to 10 minutes. It really depends on, yeah, they might have questions, or sometimes I don't give as much detail. I just go straight to the concept, you know, right away. But what I really try to differentiate AMEX versus everybody else, because no one else is doing this. No one else is going in the field and sharing this, because if a bank was offering ACHs, they wouldn't make, they would be losing out on those 250, 350 basis points, right? So I let them know that, you know, this is our offering, this is what's popular, and this is what we can scale.
Is our V payment program essentially the same as everything else out there?
No, I mean, there's some bells and whistles that are different, right? We have patents on it that, I mean, if you want me to get into details, I can. But
you just differentiate from the bank. So when you show the previous one, the process is exactly the same.
So,
I mean, if somebody has that today, there's not anything different we're offering.
Yeah, I mean, our V payment works almost exactly the same. There's just a few differentiators. Like, for example, the banks can't go down to the penny. So if we send a request, there's a preloaded single-use account number that can only be used up to the penny. So if it's for $100.75, these guys can only process $100.75. They can't process more or less. With where the bank programs, they can't charge more, but they can charge less. Every single one of them. They don't have that detail. So that's a differentiator, which really is impactful for the travel vertical. That's why travel does a lot of VPay, because those exactly. And then if you're doing V payments offshore, international, V payment has the capability to do variances in different currencies and things of that nature. So you could build all these different card pools, and Mickey Smith and Bruce Cool, those guys can articulate it way better than I can. But with VPay, just to warn you, it's good to supplement VIP, but it is a much more difficult implementation.
Really?
Much more difficult, because you have to deal with card numbers and different card pools, and my experience is VIPs is so much easier than VPay. Keep it
So
simple.
Eric, on average, if your signing is like 10 million, 20 million in potential charge volume, how quickly can you implement that? You said it's harder for V payment. How quickly are you implementing these VIPs?
Well, it really depends. I would say it'll take 8 weeks on average for the. Well, you know what? Let me go back. It depends on your client. If they have IT resources and they're highly motivated, I mean, Dignity Health, they had IT wrapped up in 2 weeks because they had 3 people in IT and they had a lossiness expert, ERP expert, and they were ready to go. So in 2 weeks, all the testing, the file build out, everything was done. And they already had a Wells Fargo program. So if they have another program, oftentimes they can leverage their existing payment instruction file and just kind of build off of it. So it's not their first rodeo, so to speak. They can.
But the time it takes to have the
Supplier enablement,
yes,
Oh.
all the way
Yeah.
Like
from your yes to book charge volume.
I would probably, to be conservative, I would say 3 months to at least get some charges up. And you know what? Here's the secret: is that you never stop ramping up VIP. You can. I mean, I've had deals for 1.5 years. I'm still calling suppliers. So the answer is it really depends. But I would say to be conservative, 8 to 12 weeks to get a couple suppliers up. But you're never going to stop.
It's actually not bad, because we've been hearing like 6 months, 8 months, a year.
Oh, yeah.
So
No,
nobody wants to touch it.
It all depends on how many,